really the ones that I tend to gravitate to the most were Clint's movies and John Wayne's movies. Those two, the John Ford westerns with John Wayne, and then Clint's spaghetti westerns, which were they were simple and fantastic. Really, just a straightforward story. And the thing about a western is, for the most part, um, a western is really just a story about humanity. It's a Spartan environment, so there's no cars that turn into semi trucks that turn into airplanes. There's no spaceships. There's no aliens. It's just people and maybe some horses, maybe some guns, but it's really just human beings and emotions. And so you're really telling tales of humanity, and that's really what that's why we would go to the Globe Theater. That's why we would go to a play, because we're being entertained by what other humans are doing. And sadly for the film industry, now we've got the ability to look at every single human's home videos, and so we've all become enraptured in the glorious idea of YouTube and watching other people's mundane lives, yet they're somehow entertaining because it's simply not ours. The Western, I think, was really a more romantic and grandiose version of watching a story about your neighbors or some historical figures that did some incredible things. So yeah, I've always liked the Western, and I'm very glad that I'm able to be in them. And when I was younger, Hollywood as a film, it's tough for me to say Hollywood about the film industry, because there's nothing in Hollywood that happens around the film industry. It's all West LA, Northern LA, Louisiana, North Carolina, and specifically Atlanta, Georgia. So saying Hollywood and equating that to movies has always been tough for me. I grew up in Malibu, but yeah, when I was young, I spent my life traveling with the family because of Dad's career, and we were lucky enough to spend every summer in a different state of the Union, a different part of the United States. And so I got to spend we have 50 states in the United. And I think I've been to 48 of them. And I'm thankful for that. And I got to see a real broad spectrum. You mentioned my dad and being, having grown up in Hollywood and all that, in the film industry, I think I would rather say. And right now, so bringing my history, which is, I was a child of the 80s, the 70s and 80s. And then the 90s was, as my grandmother would say, my day. The 90s was when I was in my 20s. And, when you're in your 20s, that's your generation is running culture. Your generation is dictating what the world is doing when you're in your 20s. And so for me, that was the 1990s. And it was a great time. Great time for music, great time for movies. But movies were all over the place. We were doing science fiction. We were doing Western. I mean, you had Maverick. You had Top Gun. No relation. I mean, Maverick, like, Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster. And then, like, you had Men in Black. And then you had, like, there was just movies all across the board. And now the way the film industry's gone is really, like, as you say, Hollywood, meaning in my mind, I equate that to the studio system. The studios, they've really gone the route of leading the charge of the far left, and so all of the movies that are coming out of the studios in LA or around the country, those big projects seem to be really leading the charge for the far left mindset, and the moral views and the moral rules and the moral standards. Like now, you can't go to a kids movie without seeing something about transgenders and lesbians and whatever. Like there has to be all these aspects that are built in to the studio films. Whereas I feel like the Westerns, you can have guys like me who don't really fit into that crowd. You just won't see me auditioning for Euphoria because there's nothing for me on Euphoria. And so for a lot of us, there's been no work in the studio system for the past 5 years. There just hasn't been, because they've outright said, we have no interest in people like you for our projects. So there's been a real kind of a explosion of kind of like the other side of the creek. There's Westerns being made, and some of us, quote unquote, classical or classic old school actors are able to work again because we're we're doing something that we fit into, and so I'm very thankful for Rust, and I'm very thankful. I've done like a few other Westerns in the past few years, and I've got another one coming out as well. And I guess it's where I fit in, and I'm just glad that I've found a group of people that that will hire me, that I can work with, because I've been doing this for a long time, and it's all I know how to do, and it's what I love.
Yeah. I suppose, Jake, in terms of working in a timepiece era, I mean, British actors normally have to work in that sort of Victorian sort of era, that 1800s England sort of piece. But as American actors, being true to that sort of time period back in 1800s America, trying to fit in and trying to make sure that you honor that piece. Is that sort of challenging? Is that more challenging than playing a futuristic sci-fi sort of role? Because you want to honor that sort of era because it's a part of American history and culture that you really sort of fit into that sort of scene. Is that challenging as an actor?
Well, if I'd had my druthers, I would have gone from Starship Troopers, and I would have continued on. I would have gone into Guardians of the Galaxy, and I would have gone into the Mars movie with Ridley Scott, and I would have I love the science fiction genre, and the science fiction genre is I think it's my favorite. And I thought if I turned in a good enough product, a good enough role, a good enough part with Starship Troopers, that I might be able to continue on. But nobody was interested in really hiring me on that level after that. So it is what it is. So the reason I'm an actor is because I love the notion of getting to explore what it's like to be different people. And when I did Contact with Jodie Foster and Robert Zemeckis, and I played this crazy, ludicrous, off the charts religious guy who blows the whole place up, and that was something that's far from who I am, that character. And it just so happens that I was working on a film in Texas with Luke Wilson and Drew Barrymore called Home Fries. And my dad was doing a movie in San Antonio, Texas, right near the Alamo. And I was supposed to be in that movie, but I couldn't do 3 films at once. So I just went down to visit while I was in Austin. So I drove down to see, I said hello to my dad and all the people on that movie. It was the Texas Rangers. It was John Milius thing. Tom Berenger was in it. and all my friends from Starship Troopers were in it. And as I said goodbye to them, my dad said, "Hey, you know what? You ought to go check out the Alamo. If you've never been there, just go see it. It's a good part of history, and our family's from Texas." And so I said, "Sure." And I drove by myself to the Alamo. And as I was looking around, I noticed that the street cleared out, and there was a man in a billowy shirt with a Bible in his hand, and he was standing in the middle of the street, and he started orating. He was basically a busker, but he was orating the Bible, and he was just shouting at the crowd. And he was very captivating. And so I sat down and I watched him for about a half an hour. And it wasn't until the next day that I was on an airplane to Los Angeles going to do the big monologue in Contact, where I'm screaming at the crowd about, these scientists, like, you are these the people you want talking to your God for you? I was looking at my material on the airplane, and I thought, my God, I saw this man yesterday. And that was just by chance. And it was because I was in Texas. It was because my dad said, come visit. And then it was because my dad said, hey, on your way out of town, go check out the Alamo. And it just all lined up, and it all worked out perfectly. So one of the beautiful things about representing humanity is that you never know who you're going to see or what's going to happen, that you might be able to just add that to your bag of tools when you go and play a character. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I suppose, Jake, in terms of the movie industry, and you mentioned that your father's still very much active, and you're very much active as well. That must be a great thing for a family dynamic as well, that you can bounce off each other still to this very much day. I know you're very much your own independent actors, and you do various different projects, but to say that you both of you are still very much in touch with the business, it almost it's still very much it's some you can always get advice off each other, which is very rare these days, because normally that some one other father son, maybe one retires, or maybe one steps away from the industry, but you've been active throughout, so you can sort of lend off each other.
Yeah, and as time goes by, I learn so much more as far as that perception and the relationship between my father and I, and the age, and how that relates. And our relationship when I was 16 and he was 30 something, 39. What's 7 is yeah, I guess he would have been somewhere around 40. Our relationship then was far different than it was when I was 40 and he was 63. And then again, it's far different now that I'm even much older than that. Don't need to mention numbers, but at these different ages, I mean, I'm trying to posit you an interesting response to your question, because your question is fairly deep in that I grew up in a household that was very much Gary Busey world, and it was very interesting and very full of colorful characters. And in our household, we had the likes of Robbie Robertson and Jeff Bridges and Nick Nolte and Mick Fleetwood and Bonnie Raitt and Rebecca De Mornay and Bonnie Bramlett, and I don't know why I'm on the Bonnies, and Scott Glenn, and all of these friends that my dad had met in his 20s, and they remained friends. And so it was a very, artistic and interesting, exciting way to grow up, because everybody had a joint in their hand and had an artistic idea to offer to the conversation. And as a child, you sit there and you watch and you go, wow, this is cool. All right, this is what life is. That's fine. And I got to see a lot of wonderfully creative people in their very most intimate home habitat, and I learned a lot. And so I'm very thankful, and the relationship that my dad and I have, as far as your question goes, and how we relate to each other. I think at this point he's retired at this point, and so now he's kind of like my old man. He's like, yeah, sitting on the couch watching America's Got Talent, and then after that we're gonna watch a little Dr. Phil, and that's what excites him these days. And then when I tell him about how I'm going off to do a movie or whatever, he's very supportive, and he's very enthusiastic, and he has ideas that he offers to me, but it's kind of like taking a suggestion from your 6-year-old son, really, because he's just he's out there, and he's very adventuresome. And when I say 6-year-old son, what I mean, like, he's got like a raw talent, a raw energy, an unfettered like energy that just is unbound by anything. So he comes with ideas that are just sometimes I just have to laugh and say, okay, Dad, great. Yeah, sure. And other times I think to myself, wow, that's very intuitive. So, it's an interesting, I feel like I'm at an interesting place in life personally, with where I am as a father and a son, and the age that I am, and what that relationship is with my dad and what I learned from him. And I'm sad that he's had to retire, but it's just the way life is sometimes, but we have a great relationship. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Gary, I suppose the penultimate sort of question, second last question for you now. You mentioned before we came on air that you have some other projects in the pipeline that might be coming our way in the near future aside from Rust.
Yeah. Well, I recently did a film that is it's a dark comedy, and it's called The Dead Janitors Club, and it's a humorous thing where you've got an older police officer who puts an ad out in the paper for an assistant for a new job, and the idea for the job is we're going to go around and clean up crime scenes and charge a pretty hefty price, because apparently, and I didn't know this, but at least in California with the law enforcement, like if there's a shootout at somebody's house or at a bar or at a restaurant or wherever, like, they've got to hire somebody to clean it up. It's not like part of the government or part of the police where it's like, okay, well, here comes the cleanup crew to mop it all up. So the concept of this movie is that my character as a police officer is perhaps not always on the up and up. And so, we steal things from the crime scenes because, hey, who else is here? And it's a cute movie, and it's if you got a good stomach for dark comedy, it'll be great. And it's The Dead Janitors Club. Hopefully it'll be out next year. And the other one I just finished up is a movie called A Better Way. And A Better Way is about a man who's lived the hard life, been in and out of jail for drugs and alcohol, and he finds the Lord, and he finds religion, and that turns his life around. And so then he starts a ministry where he helps the prisoners who decide that they would like to choose that instead of jail. So in this movie, it's a true story, and there's a point in the movie where they've got the first honoree who the judge says, would you like to go to jail, or would you like to go under the care of this man who's going to teach you religion and truly be correctional and helpful rather than just in the system. And so I think it's going to be a very powerful movie. So A Better Way is that one. And those two will be out next year.
Perfect, Jake. Jake Busey, you play a drum in the film Rust. I'm going to turn it over to you now for the final 30 seconds. You might enlighten all our listeners, all our viewers, why they should go out to their cinemas en masse May the 2nd to see Rust, where you play drum alongside Francis Fisher, Alec Baldwin, Josh Hopkins, Travis Hammer, and Travis Fimmel. And what's in store for them when they go to their cinemas and sit down and watch Rust?
Well, thank you for mentioning everybody in the film. That was respectful. This movie has a lot of social stigma around it because, unfortunately, there was a terrible accident on the set before I was involved. And that accident was that I shouldn't say our because I wasn't there, but the cinematographer was accidentally shot. And the film was being put together by friends of mine, people I had known. And I had asked if I could be a part of it, and they said, no, we've already got it cast, and we've got bigger named actors than you. And maybe we'll work together again in the future. And then the accident happened. And I called my friends to see, are you guys okay? And my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is tragic. And they said, yeah, we don't know what we're going to do. This is awful. We're going to take some time and figure this out. And so after about 6 months, what they decided to do in conversating with the victim's widower and children, but with the victim's family, and I, saying that is just, it's terrible. But with Halyna's family, they said, what do you want to do? And the decision was made that all of the proceeds from the film, every ticket sold, every t-shirt sold, every cent, every small little bit of money that is made from this movie will go toward her children and her widower. It'll go to her family. And so I've seen this movie, and the great, oh gosh, what would you call it? The great conundrum, the irony is that the movie is just beautiful. And she was a brilliant cinematographer, and she had a friend who knew her style who came on and completed the film. And I came on board, and I was invited to come on board to complete the film. And it was basically like, look, man, you're not going to get a good credit. You're not going to get paid. You're not going to get your name up in lights. You're just going to fit right into where this other guy was and just finish the movie for her honor. And so we did, and we went and we finished the movie, and it was very somber, and it was very heartfelt, and all of us knew that there was this energy of her spirit around us, and we absolutely had to do righteous by her. So, in having seen the movie already, I can tell you it's a monster. This film is beautiful. It is just incredibly shot. It shows the United States of America and its glory. It shows Montana and Wyoming and just the beautiful vistas and how the sunlight going through the trees catches the rivers and what the Old West was like. And it's really a powerful film. And it's tragic that the tragedy happened. But I think what would be more tragic is if her family didn't reap the benefits of her last bit of work. And so I urge you and your friends, everyone that you know, say, let's go see Rust. Go check it out. Or you go check it out first, and then you can decide. But go see the movie, because all of those proceeds will go to supporting those kids that don't have a mom anymore. And it's really important. And we did everything we could to honor her and her life and her work. So, I wasn't there when everything happened, but I came in to help finish it. And I really feel like it's an incredible piece, and I know it's going to be one of the most powerful films of my career. And really because of the emotions involved, and it's too big for me to talk about, really. So go see it. It's amazing.